This video's learning objective is to change freely between related standard units, e.g. time, length, area, volume, capacity, and mass, and compound units, e.g. speed, rates of pay, prices, density, pressure in numerical and algebraic contexts. Lovely looking and sounding learning objective. So we've kind of talked a bit about converting between standard units. I think a while back we talked about kind of standard prefixes. So do check out that video. So there's an overlap between this video and that video. So there's kind of make sure you check out that video before coming to this video. So kind of between related standard units, that's for example going from, for time for example, that's going from say hours into for example seconds, or into minutes, or etc. So you kind of, or to days or weeks, and that just kind of requires you to remember how many hours in the day, how many seconds in a minute, how many minutes in the hour, etc. So kind of that's something I'm sure most of you guys know this. In terms of length, that's kind of going from meters to centimeters to kilometers. And again, check out that video I talked about kind of the standard prefixes, to make sure you check that out. Area is kind of going from, say, meter squared to centimeter squared, and I'll talk a bit about that in a second. Same thing with volume and capacity. One thing to watch out is, say, for volume, say meter cubed can actually go into, for example, liters. So the way to think about it is, if you have a box, right? So meter cubed measures volume, right, of say a box, and liters, you usually think liters in terms of liquids, right? You have like a liter of water, or half a liter of Coca-Cola or whatever, right? But in that sense, liter is also a measure of the volume of the water, like how much water is in there. So these are both measures of volume. Just kind of, that's something to remember. So say this could be a volume of a box. Well, this might be volume of a liquid, but since they're both kind of, this is how we usually think of it, as kind of liters is volume of a liquid, and kind of meters is, for example, the volume of a box. But we don't necessarily have to think that. That's just kind of what we use it in the real world, like. So you can, since they are both at the end of the day measures of volume, you can convert between the two. So 1 meter cubed is equal to 1,000 liters. That's just something I think is just helpful to remember. And okay, so now kind of we'll talk a bit about area and volume and how to convert between those. So say if you have a square that's 10 centimeters wide. Oh, that's a bad looking square. That's it. Okay, I'm gonna let's try and draw a half decent square. Okay, yeah, it's 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. If I ask you to calculate the area, you'd say it's 100 what? Centimeters squared, right? Don't forget the unit. 100 centimeters squared. Now, if I ask you to calculate turn this into, for example, meter squared, right? You might think, okay, so there's 100 centimeters in a meter, right? So this is supposed to be 1 meter squared, right? But that actually would be wrong, right? So let's think about why that's wrong. So 10 centimeters squared, we know that's this is 100 centimeters. 100 centimeters in meters. 10 cm squared. 10 cm comes out to 0.1 meter, and 0.1 meter. So if we actually calculate the area, it's 0.1 meter times by 0.1 meter, which comes out to 0.01 meter squared, which obviously isn't that, right? So because we so if you want to get into meters, we do this, we do times by 10 to the negative 2 here, and times by 10 to the negative 2 here. And since it's then we multiply these by each other. Instead of dividing by 100 once, we divide by 100 twice. So we do, if you want to go from 100 cm squared, instead of dividing by 100 once, we divide by 100, and then divide again by 100. So divide by 100 times 100, which comes out to 0.01 meter squared. And so in general, right, if we had, say, for example, if I was to convert between, say, millimeters squared to, say, cm squared, right? So with millimeters, if we want to go from 1 millimeter to 1 cm, 1 millimeter to 1 cm, what we do is we do 1 divided by 10, right? But since it's kind of millimeters squared, we do 1, so what do we have before, right? It would be with the usual thing. What we do is, instead of, because if it's squared, right? So we'll just do what this usually is, and then square it. So by 1/10 squared, like that. cm. So that's basically how it is. So it's a, you know, and kind of applying this to say millimeters cubed to cm cubed, right? Well, what we do is we do what's the conversion between mm to cm? So mm to cm is you divide by 10, so you do 1 over 10. And then because it's cubed, we just do cubed here. That's kind of the principle. So if I ask you to convert between, say, 2.2 cm cubed into millimeters cubed, what you do here, okay, so to cm to millimeters, we times by 10, but since it's cubed, we times by 10 to the 3. So we have 2.2 times by 10 to the 3, which comes out to 220, oops, it comes in the wrong place, to that millimeter cubed. See, yes, see, oh, no, sorry. So you did, sorry, and then here on the left, you'd also have, say, 2.2 cm cubed is equal to that mm cubed. It's helpful to even have sometimes the units in the working, just remember what you're dealing with. Let me try, let's say another one. 89000 millimeter cubed into liters. And I remember I gave you the conversion up back there, which was 1 meter cubed is 1,000 liters. So first thing you have to do is convert this into meter cubed. So why don't you pause the video, give that a go. So to convert into meters, what we do is we usually, to go from millimeter to meter, we divide by 1,000. But in this case, we wouldn't divide by 1,000, we divide by 1,000 to the power of 3. So 89000 times by 1 over 1,000 to the 3. And now we have meter cubed. And remember, 1 meter is 1,000 liters. So if we want to go from meter cubed to liters, we just times by 1,000. So, sorry, this working isn't actually too well done. You'd say something like, you'd have this, and on the left you'd have something like 89 millimeter cubed is equal to this, which is equal to 89, and remember we times by 1,000 from this, and then kind of, you know, we have 1,000 up here and then 1,000 down here, so one of those cancels. So we have 89 divided by 1,000 squared, which comes out to 0.089 liters. And again, always really important to have the units at the end because they've kind of asked us explicitly in the question. And now we get to say, now that we've understood how to kind of deal with these, with area and volume ones, we have to think about as kind of compound units. So speed, for example, you know, speed, we might have something like kilometers per hour, and another unit of speed measurement is meters per second. So if you want to go from this to this, there's kind of, you have to think this through as well. Well, if we were asked to say convert, say 7.2 kilometers per hour into meters per second. So the way we approach a question like this is that we need to break it down. Let's convert, say, 7.2 kilometers per hour into 7.2 meters per hour, and then we can do meters per second. So we go, you know, meters per hour and then meters per second. And by breaking it down, it just makes our lives a bit easier. So we know 7.2 kilometers per hour means that you're running 7.2 kilometers in 1 hour. So in that same hour, so how many kilometers is a meter? We know, you know, in 1 km is the same thing as 1,000 meters. So if we're running 7.2 kilometers in that hour, it also means we can say 7.2 times by 1,000 meters per hour. So that's 7,200 meters per hour. And if we're running so if it's taking an hour to, so if in 1 hour we're running 7,200 meters, how many of that can we run in a second? Well, we know in 1 hour there are 60 minutes, and in each minute there's 60 seconds. So in an hour is 60 times 60 seconds, which is 3,600 seconds. So if in 1 hour we run kind of 7,200 meters, in 1 second we'd run 3,600 of that. So we do 7 to divide by 3,600 meters per second, which equals 2 meters per second. So when it comes to these compound ones, what's important is you kind of do it a bit slowly, step by step. And since if you look at this, right, kilometers per hour, if you want to go from, what you do is you multiply by the usual thing for km to meters. So, to go from km to meters, you times by 1,000, and to go from hours to seconds, you times by 3,600, right? So you multiply by 3,600, right? But in this case, because you see this division sign here, it's divided by like per hour. So because we multiply here, we kind of reverse it to if it's on the bottom here. So it's km per hour. We have this division sign here basically. So instead of multiplying by 3,600, what we usually do, we'll just do the opposite of that to go from hours to seconds, for example. So let's try that out with the kind of other way around. If you want to go if we have 930 meters per second, if you convert that into kilometers per hour. So to go from meters to kilometers, we divide by 1,000. So, and since it's meters is kind of up here, right? We'll just do that anyways. We'll do what we always do. So we do 930 divided by 1,000 kilometers per second. And if we want to go from seconds to hours, we divide by 3,600. Because say 1 second is, in an hour it's like 0.0, I don't know, what's 1 divided by 3,600? 1 second is 0.0002777 hours. So it's a tiny amount. So we divide by this usually, right, to go from seconds to hours. But because it's kind of a division sign here, it's because it's this sign here. What we'll do is we'll do the opposite of this. So instead of dividing by 3,600, we'll multiply by 3,600. So that equals to 9,300 times by 3,600 kilometers per hour. And if we just calculate this, that comes out to 3,348 kilometers per hour. So you can actually check this on your calculator. There's a function for you to convert between meters per second and kilometers per hour. You shouldn't really rely on this because you should tend to use the principal, because sometimes the conversion isn't available on the calculator. But if you play around with the calculator, you should be able to find out where it is. It does depend per calculator. I don't think all calculators have it, but the ones that I did use at GCSE did. So if you're still using the same ones, hopefully you have it. Just Google the name of your calculator and search convert function, or convert between kilometers per hour to meters per second, and hopefully something should come up. But yeah, again, don't rely on it. But it's a good check if this does happen. And also you need to show you're working. If this is the kind of question comes up in the exam, right? If just putting a bottom line answer may not get you all the marks. The working does. So make sure you don't rely on it, but it's a very good check to have that. So to recap, when we have these compound ones, right? If you're going from say meters per second to km per hour, these are compound units, right? Because it's meters and seconds, there's 2 of them. So what we do is kind of the ones on the top, we do the normal conversion from meters to km, and then from the ones on the bottom, we do kind of the opposite of the normal conversion. So for example, when we go from seconds to hours, we usually divide by 3,600. But since it's on the bottom, we're going to do the opposite and multiply by 3,600. So hopefully that all made sense. This is something that it took me a while to get the hang of this, and a lot of the time you make mistakes in this. So when it does come to this, it's really important to do this step by step, and that way you'll avoid the mistakes, especially when you start off doing it. And once you get better, you could do the step in one go if you really wanted to. So make sure you do practice a few of these and try to get the hang of them. But yeah, hopefully that all made sense, and I'll see you guys in